The first article I chose to read for this assignment is Speaking Back to Manifest Destinies, a land education-based approach to critical curriculum by Dolores Calderon, which explains and describes place-based education and the critical role that land education must play in decolonizing education. Calderon suggests that the only way to address and confront the harm that is continually perpetuated in social studies curriculum in the U.S. is to center the land within curriculum, and also suggests that Indigenous communities are central in creating sustainable learning systems. As teachers working on the process of decolonizing our teaching practices and, more broadly, the education systems that we are a part of, we must continue to center Indigenous voices and meaningfully incorporate Indigenous ways of knowing without expecting Indigenous communities to share their time and energy in this process, as they are often doing important work of their own in strengthening and educating their own communities. Amy Lonetree's article, Decolonizing Museums Representing Native America in National and Tribal Museums, outlines the history of colonization and anti-Indigenous violence in and through museums. She describes how museums have, in recent times, become more inclusive and collaborative with Native Americans, and connects this trend with larger movements toward cultural sovereignty of Indigenous peoples. By 1990, an estimated 300,000 to 2.5 million bodies were being kept in museums around the world, with many millions more cultural items. It was important to sit with the fact that for many museum goers, these items are simply inanimate objects with no real use other than to educate others about the past. But to Indigenous peoples, these same items may have represented their culture in ways that we cannot even imagine. The idea of relationality, a core value of Indigenous epistemologies, is brought to the fore here, as we consider how museums have shaped our understandings of Indigenous peoples and what role they currently have in righting wrongs and moving forward in a process of decolonization. Interestingly, the Museum of Anthropology at UBC and its leadership under the late Michael Ames is applauded specifically in this article as the world leader in this process of curatorial collaboration with Indigenous peoples. Lonetree also goes into detail in her article on the many examples of museums and cultural centers around the world that are entirely owned and run by Indigenous peoples of the area. Katie Boudreau Morris, in her article titled Decolonizing Solidarity, Cultivating Relationships of Discomfort, argues that discomfort, particularly in decolonizing work and activism, must be recognized and deployed as a tool towards decolonization, rather than just an obstacle or outright barricade. This builds on the ideas we have considered in the course thus far, in both our experiential tasks and in our breakout room discussions, as we were consistently asked to recognize any discomfort or awkwardness we felt about activities and to analyze why those feelings may have risen. Most striking about this article is an excerpt that describes the difference between self-centering, faux solidarity work and genuine solidarity on the part of a white settler, non-Indigenous, or other actor in position of power, and I paraphrase. You can either say, jump with us in the canoe and help us paddle, as colonizers, and we'll all get to the same place together, or, preferably, we'll jump in your canoe and we'll help you paddle where you're going. These texts are broadly connected by the theme of decolonization, a very complex theme. Dolores Calderon argues for a restructuring of social studies curricula through Indigenous-centered land-based education in order to decolonize it. Amy Lonetree writes of the colonial history of museums and the recent shift towards collaboration with Indigenous peoples as well as Indigenous ownership of museums. This shift exemplifies the complexity of decolonizing work, but also reveals that it is possible and is an ongoing process. Katie Boudreau Morris insists that we nurture a habit of discomfort and constantly work to decenter ourselves as people in positions of power within the processes of decolonization. I appreciate how these articles complement each other. Morris's work can help us. Moving forward, I can take the lessons learned from these articles both separately and synthesized together into my practice as a teacher. This year, I will be teaching at a private school that, I learned, before accepting the position, has established a long-term relationship with the Musqueam people. This relationship has, according to them, increased the presence of Musqueam people and ways of being into the school. But I will not see how this relationship actually works until I'm working there myself. Who benefits from this relationship, and in what ways? What was the initial purpose of this relationship, and how does the learning and teaching that take place there encourage and support processes of indigenization and decolonization? I hope to carry the invaluable lessons learned in this assignment and the course with me this year to build my stamina in asking and answering these questions. I am aware of my privileges within the education systems of which I am a part, though I know I will continue to learn more and feel discomfort creeping in. But I now feel more capable to look that discomfort in the eye, understand its presence, and work with it, rather than be paralyzed, and move forward in the ongoing project of decolonizing education.